Some would say, indeed some have warned me, that this is a time of very scarce resources. And it is in a sense, but in another sense we have a wealth of great resources here in the State Department, and I'd like to touch on some of them just briefly. The greatest resource we of course have is the people, all of you here in this room and in the posts around the world. They bring expertise and ideas and energy. I want to work with you. I think if we pull together and work together, we can achieve great things. To me, that means the entire building, not just the 7th floor, but the entire building, all the floors and all of our posts around the world. Our second great resource is our commitment to the United States, our commitment to foreign policy. We're committed to serve our country and its people. All of us are here because of idealism. I don't think there's probably a person in the room who didn't undertake the career that you're in because of a sense of idealism. We should be proud of that idealism and not apologize for it in any respect. In my testimony, I said that I thought we ought to have here in the State Department an American desk, and along with me, you're all sitting behind that desk. It's important as we try to create a new foreign policy, establish new precepts in this new era, to remember that it's the American people that we are serving, and to avoid the disease of clientitis as well as we can. Our third great resource is our discipline, a discipline that comes from our training and from our life experience. We must recommit ourselves to the highest personal and professional standards. I hope to demonstrate to you that I will welcome your ideas and welcome your candor. We'll count on you to tell me when I'm wrong. In turn, I'll expect from you the very best, not 80% or 90%, but really 100%. And each of you can only know when you've reached that 100%. I believe that we're the President's foreign policy team, and that President Clinton is entitled to 100% from each of us. The President places great store, as you know, in teamwork. He was talking about that at some length at the first cabinet meeting. We need to be disciplined about working with our colleagues in other departments across the government. I would not expect President Clinton to be very patient if we are impaired in what we're doing by turf wars. I know that he expects from us a strong sense of teamwork. Finally, our fourth great resource is our capacity for change. You know from the President's inaugural address, as well as from my own testimony, that the signature of this era is change. We must change if we're to keep pace, not to change for the sake of change, but to keep abreast of the times, change to put responsibility back into this department as a whole, change to increase the interaction between the 7th floor and the rest of the building, change to recognize our new responsibilities in the new world. It is your responsibility and mine to change the department, to provide a new set of precepts for this new era, and I ask you, indeed I implore you, to join me in this. With the resources I've mentioned and many more, we can surely succeed if we'll have bold, creative, flexible new ideas, if we can have the best preparation within the department to test those new ideas and amplify them, if we can take clear and decisive, not muddy or murky action, if we can earn the trust of our colleagues throughout the government by our loyalty and by our discretion, if we can really strive for excellence, that 100% that I was talking about, then we shall surely succeed. I thank you all for coming. I'll take your questions in just a few minutes, if there are some who have questions. But first, I want to introduce my colleague, Dr. Cliff Wharton. I must say I could not have been happier the day down in Little Rock when Dr. Wharton indicated that he would be prepared to join me as Deputy Secretary of State. The reputation that Dr. Wharton has is that he can succeed at almost anything, and he succeeded at every aspect of his life, whether it be Michigan State Universities or the State Universities of New York or one of the largest pension funds in the United States. He's been a great success. He's a great human being, a great American. So I want to introduce to you with a great sense of pride my colleague, Dr. Cliff Wharton, who would like to say a few words of welcome as well. Cliff?
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Before I begin, I would like to introduce another member of the team, Madeleine Albright, Ambassador to the UN. Would you please stand here? For me, it is a great privilege and an honor to have been selected, not only to have been selected for this very high post, which I know if my late father were still alive would be very, very pleased at, but also to have been selected to work with an outstanding individual such as Warren Christopher, as well as the team that is going to be the key team in this effort that we have to build a post-Cold War foreign policy.
Thanks, Cliff. Madeleine, my apologies. I was so stunned by the size of the audience that I missed you sitting down there in the front row. As you know, Madeleine is going to be our ambassador to the United Nations, and the President has designated her as a member of the Cabinet, and I think we'll be seeing a lot of Madeleine down here in Washington because of the primacy of UN matters and because of the President's determination that she be personally involved in discussions at the highest level. And so Madeleine and I are old colleagues and friends, and it's a joy for me to have another opportunity to work with her.
During the Carter administration, she served as a staff member at the White House and the National Security Council. We now bring you her remarks from yesterday afternoon.
There's lots of ways to introduce Madeleine Albright. Of course, she is the ambassador to the United Nations currently. She has a long resume. She's done just about everything in the town. She loves journalism. She loves international affairs. She loves tough problems, which we can all be happy about because she's got some tough problems. She worked in Washington as Senator Muskie's aide up on the Hill. She moved to the White House as the Carter administration's national security advisor. She was been a Georgetown professor. She has been president of the Center for National Policy. She was a foreign affairs advisor to the Dukakis administration. She also has advised President Havel of Czechoslovakia.
And my friends ask me if I'm terrified, and I'm not. Now, the reason I'm not, I don't know. I guess part of it has to do with the sense that I have that I'm really in a candy store, that these are all the issues that I've ever wanted to talk about. Those of you that know me, I guess until the gridiron I had a reputation of being deadly serious. But I really like international relations, and I was raised to a life of international relations. And not only that, very specifically, as life would have it, the United Nations story. My father was a Czechoslovak diplomat whose assignment actually was as the Czechoslovak ambassador to Yugoslavia. Since neither country now exists, it makes me feel as if I lived during the Austro-Hungarian Empire or something. And then his last assignment was as the Czechoslovak representative to a United Nations commission to do with India and Pakistan, unfortunately a problem that still exists. And we came to this country because my father had that United Nations post, and when he got here, because the communists had taken over Czechoslovakia, he asked for political asylum. And so if it were not for the UN, I would not be here at all. So that is one of those stories that kind of makes it feel exactly right. But It is very interesting also to be the only woman on the Security Council. And the combination of being the only woman and yet being the United States is quite an incredible feeling. And I know that that's all I have to say, because I think you know exactly what it means.
This will be the last question. Will you tell us your name and the question?
Yes. My name is Deborah Seke, and I'm a member. About 4 years ago, I attended a hate conference that Eli Wiesel held in Norway. And exactly what is happening in Bosnia was predicted. They said when the Russian foot went off the neck, there will be these kind of conflicts that have been kept under wraps, all these angers, hatred, people having been moved, and they predicted a series of these. How can we prevent, I mean, this one's on, and it will get resolved eventually, but not to have it repeated, to make so horrendous, using the camera, showing the destroyed, utterly destroyed cities of which no one has money to repair. You know, what can we do to prevent other ethnic conflicts of this nature?
Well, again, in some ways, I wish I were teaching a course. I think the issue here is that there are really two major trends in the world as we see it. One is an increasing move towards international cooperation, some because the possibilities are there and a desire to cooperate, some because there's a need to. So in the first category, I do think that the role, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here, because I say it all the time, the role that international media plays, telecommunications, is a very positive force in uniting people. Then there's a negative reason that there has to be international cooperation to deal with AIDS problems and what I call the international homeless, the refugees. But beneath that international trend are trends just the opposite, which is where people are subdividing themselves into smaller and smaller groups, feeling that they have to identify with some group that is just like them. To me, the former Soviet Union is actually like those Matryoshka dolls you've all seen. Every time you open one up, there's another ethnic group inside it. And so people are in smaller and smaller groups. What I think we have to do is to use the power of this trend towards internationalism to break the most virulent parts of these smaller ethnic conflicts. What has to happen, I think, is a realization that ethnic identification does not have to be identical with boundaries. And we have to talk more and more about new concepts, which are like cultural respect or cultural autonomy, or some way that people can have their own language, their own religion, teach their own history, but not feel that they have to have an airline or you know, some other symbol of their national entity. That's very hard because this nationalism is something that has been suppressed. Specifically, I think we have to do more with some of the things that Boutros Ghali has been talking about, which is preventive diplomacy and looking ahead at what some of these major conflicts would be, using conflict resolution as a way of dealing with it, and trying to get the problems before they erupt. It's very, very hard because it's an entirely new way of looking at things. But I think already we can pick out where certain areas are, and we should begin to be in those areas in a variety of ways, trying to help the people resolve their problems and not see them as part of a way of killing each other, but rather that they can have their own whatever cultural autonomy within a larger unit. It's not going to be easy, and for me, the lessons out of Bosnia are, one, that you've got to find it early, that the international community has to cooperate, and that we have to make sure that we in no way sanction what is going on in the former Yugoslavia. I know, as I told you out of my background, more about Yugoslavia than I ever thought I needed to know. But basically, I think the mistake goes way back. The West had this love affair with Tito over a single act that he performed, which is splitting with Stalin. And then we didn't pay attention to that country. So we have incredible methods of intelligence at this point, and people traveling around and the work that you all do. I think we need to get ahead of some of these problems. I know this sounds very idealistic, but sometimes that's all you've got going for you.